I just came home and of course what you see on my screen, a new development diary for CK3. And in this video we'll go over every single detail that they announced in the development diary number 44 for the 1.2 update for CK3. How many numbers can there be in a name, really? Let's get started with the top of the list, literally kill lists. They brought back a new feature from CK2 which is the kill list. Whenever you murdered someone or whenever you were involved in the execution of someone, your character will now have a kill list right next to you. And that is not only to list everyone that you killed, but other characters will have that kill list as well. So when you know a notorious murderer, you can just look around and see what they have. That feature is especially good for people like me, notorious murderers, who just want to like a little trophy wall, wouldn't we? There are two things about the battle mechanics that they've also changed. They added a new button to the game, which is attach armies. Just like in every other Paradox game where that is a feature, you can attach your army to an allied army and they will just move for you. You won't have to care anymore. You can just sit back and let the AI take the wheel. Because we all know the Paradox AI is gonna fix everything if we give it to them, right? Right? Also, there's been a graphics overhaul in the military window, which will now show you the battle window in a totally different way. It will not only look very nicely, but it will also make the most important information much easier to see, which is something you definitely want to do when you want to increase your army strength, just as I showed you in this video right here. Other UI features that will also be included is that the Dynasty Tab is now actually showing you prudent information which you will need. It will not only show you what your dynasty stands for, including the legacies that you've until now already chose, or the ones that your predecessors have already chosen for you, but it will also show you the head of the dynasty and what exactly you need to do to become the head of your dynasty, depending on how much money you need to have, depending on how many levies you need to raise. Everything along those lines will be included in that. Something that a lot of CK2 players though will find familiar is that the coat of arms now have a different mantling depending on what status you actually have, but that only applies to the players. So whenever you're in a multiplayer game, you can now see whether or not he's an emperor, whether or not your counterpart is a duchy or a county. On the other hand, when you're just in the single player game, you can see whatever you are, and I hope that you already know that. So in the single player campaign, that may not be that much of a huge improvement, right? A map change that I've actually done is that they will split up a religion, namely the religion of Suomenusco. They were replaced by two different religions, one being more in the northern Siberian part of Russia, named Turuk, and the other one more in the northern eastern part of Russia, which will then be named Ugrian. Those two religions will have a few different tenets, while both of them will be very nature focused. From what I've seen, they mostly have the same belief systems, but they are slightly different. For instance, the tenets of Turuk are ancestor worship, ritual celebration, sanctity of nature. And they've made this change to represent the Ugric people which have lived in those regions for thousands of years much better, and to give them a better national identity up there. Weren't you frustrated by the 1.1 update that you weren't ugly enough to begin with? Well, gladly they will change that, because they will overhaul the ugliness trait. Finally! They will do that by morphing and squishing all kinds of facial parts that are supposed to look ugly with you. They've usually done this through facial textures that will change depending on whether you're ugly or not ugly, and now you have the added benefit of having a fucked up jaw or having terrible cheekbones. Ain't that amazing? Finally some good roleplay for me. And also a new change that will come along is a game rule for custom games. For instance, and even the only instance mentioned in the staff diary, there's gonna be a matrilineal game rule, which means that the AI will automatically rather have... oh bitch. Which means that the AI will prefer matrilineal over patrilineal marriages. And also, what I totally love, and they should have included this in the base game already, you can now rename your children. You can now rename anyone in your court that is from your dynasty. Whenever someone's from your dynasty and that your court, and you think, you know, this lady should definitely be called... then you can do that from now on, as long as they're from your dynasty and on your court. Guys, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope it was helpful to every one of you. If you want to see more though of what YouTube has to recommend for you, why not check out this video right here? It tells you a lot of things, I hope, because YouTube selected this one. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Until then, bye!